All right, welcome back to Fight Talk, where we talk combat sports. My name is Austin Ullman, and it is finally time. We are one day away. It is time for the preview between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. I've dropped a couple videos this week explaining the fight, explaining the logistics of the fight, whether Jake Paul has a real shot in this fight. But I'll give my official prediction, talk about keys to victory for both guys, and basically just what this means for the sport as a whole. Let's start with that. When this fight was announced, I remember exactly where I was when the fight was announced. I got up really early one morning, went to the library here at college, went and did some homework, looked at my phone, and thought, oh my goodness, this is one of the crazier things I've seen. Announced for July 20, we get closer. Obviously, Tyson has the ulcer flare-up on the plane ride, gets it checked out, and they say, it was a couple days later, they said, well, we probably could have it fixed and ready, but they said it's not worth it. And so they canceled the July 20 fight. Wasn't sure if we were going to get it. A lot of people were against the fight at that point. A lot more were against the fight after that case. Obviously, Tyson's 58, but we're still getting it. And so if you want to learn more about their careers up to this point, check out the last video I did on this. But I just want to say, what does this mean? Me and Jackson talk about it often. Like, how big is this event? And sometimes it's hard to know, and there's kind of two different spectrums, right? How big is this event in terms of the casual fan who rarely or doesn't watch combat sports at all? And then how big is it to the combat sports fan base, the diehards, the ones who every weekend, every Friday night, every Saturday night are tuning into a fight, whether that's boxing, UFC, BKFC, Bellator, PFL, whatever that might be. What does it mean to them? This is an interesting one, and just gauging off of what I've seen and what I've heard, this fight is massive to the crowd who doesn't typically watch combat sports, and not that big of a deal to the crowd who does. Now everyone's going to watch it, but I've had what I've heard just here at college between people who don't usually watch combat sports, tons of people asking about it and talking about it and making predictions about it. But on the combat sports Twitter and on the combat sports world, haven't heard that much about it. In fact, heard more about UFC 309 this Saturday, the return of John Jones, than I have about this event. And so that was kind of my big question coming in is, how do they sell it? This is unlike anything we've seen. We've never had an event like this on Netflix where you don't have to pay for the pay-per-view. You can get the standard with ads on Netflix, which is $6.99 a month, and you can watch this fight. So this is different than anything we've seen. You're right? You don't have to legally stream it. You don't have to do any of that. And so my thought was, how do they advertise this? Because you have these two groups, and you have to reach the first group. You have to reach the group. You have to somehow get people to understand that this fight is happening. That's the biggest problem with most fights, right? Look at Logan Paul, Floyd Mayweather, right? Look at a lot of these fights. The biggest problem is that people don't understand that these fights are taking place. And so that was my question, is how does Netflix get it out there? And how do we as the combat sports world get it out there? Because you have two very different generations trying to watch this. You have the older generation, the Mike Tyson, the people who grew up watching Mike Tyson, and then you have the younger generation who grew up watching Jake Paul on YouTube, right? And so you have got two completely different fan bases who consume information in completely different ways. And somehow you have to succeed in allowing both of them to hear about it. Because when people hear about it, this is a fight that when people hear about it, they say, I got to see that. You only have to pay $7, I have to see that. And so the question was, can we get it out there? And so they advertised it well on Netflix, and they advertised it well on TV, right? They put it on during NFL games when probably you reach more of the older generation that way. They did a nice job of putting it on social media and YouTube and doing all kinds of things to make sure that everybody hears about this event. Because you've got, not only is it reaching two different age groups, but you have two different age groups who feel very different about how this fight is going to go. Right? You've got the older group and also a lot of young people saying, Prime Mike? This guy, if he's any inch of Prime Mike, this is going to go really well for Mike and scary for Jake. And then you have the younger group who's probably watched a few Jake Paul fights saying, this guy's a real boxer. This guy's like, he's a real boxer. He's really good, actually. He's 9-1. You know, he's beat, like, not just watched MMA guys, but, like, actual boxers. And so you have the clash of that. And that's the greatest thing of combat sports. When you have two equal groups of people coming in 100% confident that their fighter's going to win. There's nothing better than that. And that's what makes this fight so good. So what does it mean to the world? It means everything. We're going to have probably over a $15 million gate, over 65,000 people in AT&T Stadium. This is going to be the biggest gate outside of Las Vegas in boxing history in the United States. Okay, so it's a big deal there. And it really, really caught fire. Somehow they did a really nice job of it catching fire. Among the people who don't typically watch combat sports, among people who typically spend their Friday nights doing a plethora of other things, they are now tuning in to watch a 58-year-old and a 27-year-old. So, fascinating. And that was the big question when the fight was announced. Me and Jackson talked about it, is how do they get this out there? Because we saw it from the beginning. If they can do a nice job of it, this has the potential to be one of the biggest combat sporting events ever. And so it's going to be special. It's going to be fun. I feel very confidently that I know who's going to win this fight, but we'll talk about that at the end. The weigh-ins are in an hour. At this point, it's 5 o'clock as I'm recording this. The weigh-ins are at 6. That's going to be really interesting. In fact, it's going to be the most interesting thing we've seen leading up to this fight. More interesting than press conferences, more interesting than anything is what does Jake look like? Jake says he thinks he's going to get in around 224. Now, Tyson fought 4 years against Roy Jones Jr. and fought at 220. So I think the weight difference isn't going to be as big as we think in this fight. Jake has a much bigger reach, and he's 3 inches taller. So something to keep an eye on there is what weight do these guys come in at? And then the other thing was yesterday the press conference happened. They've done multiple press conferences leading up to this event. It was a dud, in my opinion. It wasn't great because Mike wasn't talking. He gave a bunch of like 2-word answers, and he doesn't hold the same ferociousness that he used to. Still holds a lot of it. Like, I wouldn't mess with him, right? But like, he doesn't have that same thing where he can like hardly say anything and just be like an absolute killer and have like reporters be, I don't want to talk to this guy, he looks so scary. He doesn't have that anymore. And so Jake was trying to egg him on and get him to say something stupid or something that Jake could use. And obviously like Jake's promotional ability is top tier, right? It's incredible. And he just couldn't get him to do anything. So it was kind of a dud. Jake went around. Ariel Helwani had him go around and pick who they thought would win, and then Jake was like, who wants to put money on it? So we went around, and a couple people actually put $1 million on it. So we'll see if Jake follows up on that. My guess would be not. Otherwise, I thought Ariel Helwani did a nice job at the press conference. There's some good fighters on this card. Obviously, the co-main event in this event is fantastic. A storyline we've been waiting for. Was supposed to happen on July 20, and they moved it back to happen on this co-main event of this card, and man, do they deserve it. Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano both are making $13 million in this fight, so like well overdue for them. And for Jake, I mean, he's gonna be nervous for his fight. Might be more nervous for Amanda Serrano. He has taken her along on this journey and let her fight on the co-main event of basically all of his cards. And this is the biggest fight of her life. This is the second time these two have fought, but Katie Taylor just picked up 2 decisive victories against Chantel Cameron in Ireland. And so now they get to fight at AT&T Stadium on one of the biggest cards of the decade, we'll say. We'll say of the decade, but it's hard to know for sure. So the press conference was good, and I was reading an article today. I wanted to touch on this. I thought it was really interesting. It said Jake Paul is in a total lose-lose situation. And I was like, yeah, probably. So you go through each 4 scenarios. Let's talk about them. Jake Paul by knockout. This is elder abuse, people would say, right? This is all these things. Jake Paul by knockout would not be good because people would just absolutely flame him for fighting a 58-year-old. Why would you do this? This is insane. You've already followed these watched MMA fighters, but this is a whole new level of disrespect, right? You can just see it. Jake Paul by decision, probably not as bad, but people, either way, I'll just cover both decisions. Mike by decision or Jake by decision, people are probably like, well, that was rigged. There wasn't that much action. I think decision is the most likely outcome in this fight. And then Mike by knockout, people are like, how'd you just get knocked out by a 58-year-old guy? So this, like, it's big for Jake. He's right in taking the fight. He's making $40 million for the fight. Like, it's what he should have done, but it's going to be I can't see this being a positive storyline leaving for him. But honestly, he doesn't care. Usually it's not a positive storyline leaving. And he's found a way to just shove that aside. And he's done a really good job at it. But with that, this has been an event that has been ridiculed widely by many people, including the top names like Eddie Hearn and Dana White. And then, obviously, like, all of boxing and MMA Twitter has been, up in roars that Jake Paul would have the audacity. And people just hate Jake Paul, right? They're doing it because they hate Jake Paul. Of how would you take a fight against a guy this old and whatnot. This is going to be an interesting sport because we have a lot of eyes on our sport now. And so, number one, will our sport deliver? Anytime you have a lot of eyes on, no doubt about it, you want to knock out, right? No doubt about it, you want to knock out. But a knockout here, if Jake knocks him out, say, and let's say Mike Tyson were to get hurt, that's a lot of steps back for the sport. It wouldn't be good. With that many eyes, if Jake were to knock him out, and you could tell Mike Tyson was a 58-year-old in there, whether he gets hurt or not, you might just be able to tell, like, oh, he does not look good. That's not going to be great for the sport. It won't be good for Jake. So it's a scary point in the sport is we're making a lot of money from the sport and gaining a lot of eyes, but frankly, we'd rather have all those eyes on a Pacquiao-Mayweather fight, right? And not this one, because that one's going to deliver regardless. Two guys that are in their primes. And in this case, it could go poorly. It could go poorly, and it could leave a bad taste in the mouth of many casual or not at all combat sports fans who are just tuning in this event. So that'll be interesting. If you are a combat sports fan, something to hope for, that this ends all right and that everyone is happy leaving and they want to come back for more, right? So let's go some keys to victory. I got 3 for each fighter. Number 1 for Jake, patient in the early rounds. He's got to be patient in the early rounds. I think Mike's best chance to win this fight is in the early rounds. Jake has looked good. He's gone 8 rounds. He went 10 with Nate Diaz, right? So he's got the stamina to do this. And I think for Mike, I mean, we know what we've seen with Jake, right? Jake's been active. He's been boxing boxers, and we know what we're going to see. There's a lot of really good things, and then there's a few flaws. We know what that's going to look like. I think the thing for Mike is, I don't think Mike's going to surprise us with something crazy here. I mean, listen, we saw Mike 4 years ago against Roy Jones Jr., right? It was fun to see him. It wasn't great. He didn't look great, right? And so this is, Jake has to, Mike's style's not changing in the 4th round randomly. It's going to be a jab. It's going to be a body shot. He used to be so good at lunging so far with his left foot and getting a left hook in there. He doesn't have that anymore. He doesn't have the crazy uppercut anymore, right? He doesn't have those things. And so if Jake can survive the first couple rounds, I think he's just going to see a lot of jabs and a lot of body shots and a lot of things that he really won't be scared of, honestly. If he can survive the first couple rounds, he's going to be able to time those things up, in my opinion. Number 2, keep your distance defensively. This, again, goes along with the early rounds, right? But he's got to keep his distance. If he's unable to keep his distance, Mike could get one of those shots. And I think it would be beneficial for Jake to lean onto Mike and to look for those clinch situations but he has to either be in the clinch or he has to be far away. He cannot be in between. If he's in between, we know with a guy like, it's the same way with the Stipe and John Jones fight on Saturday, right? Stipe and Tyson, right, at their age, they're not lunging. They're not as quick, right? They're not those guys anymore. They have to get close. They're most dangerous with short uppercuts, short hooks, short shots to the body, those short shots. Jake Paul stays away from that, he'll be okay. Number 3, open up your uppercuts and your hooks. Don't just rely on the jab and the right. Jake Paul has been heavy jab and then the big right hand. The big right hand that knocked out Tyron Woodley. The big right hand that's knocked out, plenty of guys. Looked really good, the big right hand that knocked out Andre August. Okay? But you're going to need to pull more things out of the bag. I don't think it can just be the jab and the right in this fight. He hasn't fought anyone the size of Mike Tyson. The biggest guy he's fought, I think, was like 200 pounds. Mike Tyson's going to be well over 200 pounds, and those shots aren't going to do the same damage. So here's what he needs to do. Hooks, uppercuts, shots to the body. His uppercut is really, really good. It hasn't landed. I think it's landed once. I was against Andre August for that nasty knockout. He's been really close a lot of other times. It looks really good. His best shot, in my opinion, is his left hook. His left hook, he needs to take it out, and then hooks to the body. Shots to the body are going to be massive. Where does Jake need to go in the first couple rounds? Body, 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 body. He needs to attack the body. That's going to be massive for Jake. If he's able to find the body early, it's going to be so easy to wear down and so easy to find a home for that right hand later in the fight. So that's how Jake wins. How about Mike? Surprise Jake early. Basically the opposite of what I said for Jake. Mike needs to go after him early. He needs to surprise him, and he needs to make Jake's eyes wide. Jake's ready for the moment, but 65,000 fans and this spotlight, that's still a big deal. It's still a big deal. Okay, and Jake's last 3 fights, the Mike Perry one was in a big arena, but the 2 fights before that were in smaller arenas. I'm not saying Jake isn't ready for the moment, because it's been a while since Mike's been in there. But if he gets hit early, his eyes could get wide, and we could see something really interesting. If Mike is able to catch him early, he's got to go all out right there, in my opinion. Number 2, be ready to counter the wailing shots. I talked about that uppercut. It could be a blessing and a curse for Jake. It could be really good. It's also a big shot and leaves, for an experienced counterpuncher, leaves a big hole to the face if you can respond quick enough. If Mike's able to do that, and Jake misses big on one of those uppercuts or left hooks, he could be able to finish him right there with one punch. And that's what Mike was able to do in his prime. Those are big shots from Jake. Jake throws one of the biggest uppercuts you'll see in combat sports. If he misses and Mike's able to get the counterpunch, that could be devastating. And number 3, the same thing basically as for Jake. Find the body. Mike's got to find the body. He is not going to outbox this guy to the head. He doesn't have the same power that he used to. He might look really quick in open workouts, but don't be fooled. He needs to find the body, and that can open up the head. So those are my 3 keys for each guy. What's next for either guy? Fascinating stuff. For Jake, there's so much that could be next. For Mike, hopefully nothing win or loss. Hopefully this is the last time we see Mike. I'm okay with this fight happening. After that, I don't want to see anymore. I do not want to see Mike back in there. If Jake loses, I think he goes back onto the boxing track to fight young amateur boxers and knock him out. He'll be okay. If he loses to Mike Tyson, he'll be okay. He'll recover from that. Either way, either of these guys lose, they'll be okay. And then on the other side, if Jake wins, said he'll call out Canelo Alvarez, says he wants to be a champion in boxing. Well, if he wants to become a champion in boxing, calling out Canelo is not the way to do it. But obviously, that'd be a massive fight, so he would look for that. The other fight, he's not going to look for it right away, I don't think. But Conor McGregor, that fight's going to happen. That fight is going to happen within the next 2 to 3 years, in my opinion. The money for that would be insane. And so look for that fight to happen. Look for him to call out Conor McGregor, not after this fight, but within the next couple years. And then after that, I don't know. I never thought this fight would happen, so I was never going to say Mike Tyson, but here we are with Mike Tyson. Obviously, the fight against his brother is always out there. The fight against KSI is always out there. But if he wins, honestly, the options are endless for this guy. He can really do whatever he wants for the most part. Would Canelo take that fight? I don't think Canelo would. I just think Canelo's one of those rare guys that wouldn't want to take a gimmick fight like that. He's a pure boxer. So let's talk about this. Why does Mike's age matter? Why do I've said it, I've been confident, I think Jake's going to win this fight. Why am I so confident in that? Mike Tyson fought last time around 20 years ago. Okay, 2005, 19 years ago to be exact. At the end of that fight, he said, I don't have it anymore. He lost 3 of his last 4 fights. He said, I don't have it anymore. I don't want to disrespect the sport. I got to get out. I just don't have it, and I don't want to disrespect the sport. So he got out. And then in 2020, he fought Roy Jones Jr. at the age of 54. We watched it. Didn't look great. He probably won the fight. They called it a draw because it was an exhibition. He won the fight, but Roy was just as old and just as torn down. That guy we saw that night is not beating Jake Paul. And to guess that guy's, this is Mike guy. 2 years ago, we saw him in an airport in a wheelchair. He's not getting any healthier. He's not getting any better. We're not going to see a better version we saw in 2020. Jake Paul's only gotten better from 2020. He is a good boxer. For anyone watching this that does not understand, Jake Paul is 9-1. He's not just beat washed MMA guys. He's beat Andre August, and he's beat real boxers. He fought a very, very close fight against Tommy Fury. But he's beaten 2 amateur professional boxers. Was really close to being a third in Tommy Fury. And just fought MMA strikers as well, like Anderson Silva. He just fought Mike Perry, who's in the BKFC prime of his career. You don't know who Mike Perry is? Look him up. He's the baddest man in a bare-knuckle boxing organization. He's in his prime. And he was in the UFC. So he's fought boxers and really, really tough guys. That's why Mike's age matters. 20 years ago, he said, I don't have it anymore. Nothing's changed. And here's the other thing. He's never been the most technical guy. For some guy, you can really get away with being technical. You look at Anderson Silva, just fought Chael Sonnen earlier this year in a random exhibition match. Why could Anderson win? Because he was technical. He wasn't fast. He was just technical. He was always technical. He was able to beat him that way, just win rounds, right? Mike has never been that guy. Go back and watch Mike. He misses a lot of shots. And it's not the pure boxing form that you teach your kids in the boxing gym. This is wild, wild stuff that he does. Now, uber talented, really good boxer, but it's not your technical boxer. That kind of stuff, and the stuff that he was doing then doesn't translate to now. What was his best shots? His best shot, in my opinion, was his lead left hook. He had an incredible ability, something we've never seen from anyone else, to lunge further with his left leg than anybody else, and then land a big left hand. Okay? He doesn't have that anymore. It's not that he doesn't have the left hand. He still has a left hand. He can still, throw a hook. He cannot lunge like that. And that's the biggest difference. He never jabbed anyone to death. It was never the left, right, right? It was never these fancy combos. It was just pure violence from this guy. And that stuff does not translate to 20 years from now. And people are asking, well, how do you know that? Because we watched him 4 years ago against Roy Jones Jr. We watched this event, and it was not the same. And 4 years of declined health for him is not helping, I promise you that much. He had an incredible ability in his prime to lunge in and out, really quick, in and out. He can't do that anymore. He cannot do that anymore. The reason he could get away with throwing wild, big right hands was because he would get out so quickly. And then when he hurt you, he wouldn't get out. He would just finish you before he had to get out. He can't do that anymore. He does not have that ability. With that being said, I spent an hour today and watched Prime Mike Tyson. He looks fantastic, right? The most exciting boxing highlight reel of all time, and I thought, Gervonta Davis is really good right now. He's not Mike Tyson. It'd be fun to have another guy like this. Truly, just incredible stuff. The most violent stuff you'll see in a boxing ring. The most violent stuff. He was so good. Now, he ended his career 50-6. He lost 3 of his last 4 fights. He lost to Buster Douglas, right? Some tough losses in there. There's a disqualification in there. right? Tough losses. So he's not all-time great. He's not top 5 all-time. But the most exciting, violent, vicious fighter we've seen in a boxing ring ever, without a doubt, undisputed. But the things that he was really good at do not translate. But I'm not taking anything away from Mike Tyson. This is not hate on Mike Tyson. I love Mike Tyson. No one claps louder than me when there's a current boxing event going on, Mike Tyson sitting in the front row, and they show him. I love that stuff. I love Mike, man. I will watch prime Mike Tyson all day, more than any other boxer, more than Muhammad Ali, more than anybody. More than Floyd, more than Hearns, more than Hagler, more than any of them. Mike Tyson. And it's the reason this fight is so big is because of Mike Tyson. And especially for people my age who never grew up watching Mike Tyson, but just heard about him. So many people my age have never even watched Mike Tyson highlight reels, maybe seen 1 or 2 knockouts, and they're tuning into this fight. That's awesome. Not the same guy. Not the same guy at all. So what's my prediction? This is an 8-round fight, 2-minute rounds, 5th round knockout. 5th round TKO, I'll be more exact. Technical knockout for Jake Paul. I think he finishes him on the ropes. I think he's smart early. I think he goes to the body in the 2nd and 3rd round, starts to wear him down, and the big right finishes it. The uppercut's good. The left hook will be effective, but it's the big right. He's a really sharp boxer now. Wasn't as sharp when he started, but he's always had the right hand. And it will help him. It will surge him to victory in this fight. It will be the reason he wins the fight. Oh, man. I can't wait. In my time doing this and making these videos, I can't think of a fight that I have been more excited for. Honestly, I swear. I'm so excited. And most of what I feel like has brought that excitement out of me is the fact that other people are excited for this fight. That makes my absolute year. It makes me so excited to see other people coming into combat sports. My number one reason for doing this is because UFC and boxing are my favorite sports. I love combat sports. They're my favorite sport. I love a lot of sports. They're number one. And the thing that I want more than anything with that is that people would understand. I think there are so many people in combat sports who, if they just watched it, it would become their favorite sport. If they watched UFC 309 on Saturday, it would become their favorite sport. Because that's what happened to me. And it is so violent and so vicious, and I love it. And I think there's a piece of so many guys out there that would love it if they would get into it. And so I'm hoping that this event is a step in that direction for a lot of people. And it's why I'm so excited for this event, because there's so many people that are turning on combat sports, maybe for the very first time this Friday night. So I hope that Mike and Jake represent our sport well. It's a sport we love. But that's why I do this. And that's why I'm so excited, is because there's going to be an opportunity here. Some people watch combat sports 10 times a year. Some people once a year, twice a year. And a lot of those people will be tuning into this event. I'm so excited about that. And I think it's a great opportunity for all kinds of people. People like Wade Plemons, people like Ariel Helwani, who will get to be on the call, people like Mike Tyson's son, who was on the broadcast yesterday. All these different people who are helping to put this on. And a great opportunity also for Netflix, who's doing their first combat sports live event. A big deal for them. I'm sure they're nervous and excited for that, hoping everything goes well for them. But man, super exciting. Super exciting. Saturday morning, I will be recording a post-show, if not Friday night, and uploading that. I cannot wait for that. Hopefully Jackson can join me for that, because there's going to be a lot to talk about. And Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, there's going to be a lot to talk about there. What's next for them? And Shushu Carrington, tune into his fight. I think it's the first fight. I think it's at 4:30. Tune into his fight. He's a top-ranked ESPN Plus guy. He's really good. So tune into that. Do not miss the fight tomorrow night. Do not miss the fight Saturday night. It's going to be a fantastic, the best. There's no better Friday-Saturday duo. Certainly, as long as I've been watching combat sports, there hasn't been a better duo than the one we're getting this weekend. So enjoy it. Have a great weekend watching the fights. I will come at you with some post shows. I cannot wait. I'm picking Jake Paul by 5th round TKO. But for now, I'm Austin Ullman. And thank you for tuning in. This has been Fight Talk.